Hey readers, I'm Jessie from Glitterary, coming at you this morning from The Featureless Void. For visual interests, please enjoy the corner where the walls meet at a perpendicular angle. Today, I'm here to tell you about what I'll be reading for Nonfiction November, which is a challenge put forth by a book olive, or as I like to call her, a book olive. We are challenged to read at least more nonfiction than usual, which for some people is just one book. For me, I read a fair amount of nonfiction, so I was going to try and read one book for each prompt that was given. She gave us 4 words and just one word, and we're open to interpretation, to kind of as much as flexibility as we would like. So the words this time around are true, sports, design, and voice. Those might not be the order that they were given, but that's the order I sent them in. So 4 books. I am only choosing 4 because I am probably going to be reading some non-nonfiction or fiction this month, and to be non-fictional about my own life, Pokemon Sword and Shield are coming out, and I'm going to want to play it. That's just 2 weeks, and that's going to take up a lot of my time. I'm not going to lie and pretend that I'm going to read a lot more nonfiction than I would be ordinarily. The reason that I like reading nonfiction is because, not that you don't learn from fiction, you certainly do. There have been a lot of times where I've learned a lot about history and culture and plants and astronomy from fiction. But it's just really nice to get a kind of broad, deep dive into a specific subject from an expert where you don't ever have to wonder. I mean, you should always be down to fact check, but you don't ever have to wonder, oh, is this being exaggerated for effect? Or, oh, what am I meant to take with this? Is this myth or what have you? And so I just like it. I love learning. There are all kinds of nonfiction I like. And without further ado, the TBR. TBR this month is brought to you by my friend Allison. I'm single white femaling her this time around. Always. For true crime, I'm terrible at this. I'm terrible at this. The 5. This is the story of the untold lives of the woman killed by Jack the Ripper. So this is true crime. We were in Barnes & Noble, and Allison picked this up and said, I recommend this to anybody who loves true crime or hates true crime. And I'm the latter. I'm a big baby. I don't need more things to be afraid of in this big, beautiful world. I'm totally fine. Never ever reading about a murder. That's cool. I would read true crime if it were about, like, art heists, or that one Netflix documentary where a guy cons a bunch of rich people by making fake wine and selling it for, like, millions of dollars. That's dope. More about that. I just don't want to hear about Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm sorry. I'm not even super interested in Jack the Ripper, but what I like about this is that it's about the 5 women, the victims. A lot of times they're represented as just prostitutes that he took down, which isn't even true. That's pretty much the first thing you learn. That there are all kinds of walks of life that these 5 women are coming from. It's also set against the cultural and socioeconomic difficulties that were going on in London during both the Golden Jubilee, the summer that preceded the killings, and then the effects of those after. So there's also a lot about Queen Victoria and what was happening to create the encampment at Trafalgar Square and the rise of socialism and the precipice of revolution, which is really cool. She also promised me it's not very grisly. It's not to just, like, no offense to people who like what I would kind of consider torture porn, but there's not going to be very thorough descriptions of eviscerations and body discoveries. It's about the humans and the lives that were taken and ended just because they were women, and not about the killer and the killing. So, very excited to read this one. I read the introduction. It was really cool. I actually don't know that much about the English, really anything. I know about, like, Irish history, I know about American history, and then I know about the world stage during some things, but I don't know a lot about, like, the late 1800s other than Dickens and what we learned from there. So I'm really excited. So that's true. The next book brought to you courtesy of Allison. This is Allison's actual book, is The Red Princess. This book I am doing for the category sport because Allison lent this to me 8 months ago. I have not read it until now, and she's been a very good sport about it. Wink. This book is a biography about, it's the author's grandmother, Sofka Zinoviev, her grandmother, Sofka Degorkolovki, and she was born in 1907, again, right on the brink of revolution, this time in Russia. And so she was born a princess, and by the time she was 7, the revolution had broken out, and they escaped to first the Crimea, and then later Paris and England, and she just pretty much lived all over. So it's pretty interesting. One, it's called The Red Princess because she did go on to join the British Communist Party, which is very shocking for somebody whose life was so uprooted in a communist revolution in one country to go on and become that very thing in a different country. And two, the writer, there's a bit of a like her own memoirs that are kind of woven in as she traverses the story of her grandmother and her grandmother's life. She goes to Russia to see what has become of the homes that her grandmother lived in, and meets a lot of people that are living obviously in modern day Russia because it's written now, and how they now look through, she says, rose-colored glasses. I've read about 50 pages of this. Rose-colored glasses to see the Tsarist period, and they really kind of have nostalgia for it instead of looking on it as this horrible time, and their own complicated relationship with their own complicated history, and how also sometimes they'll speak well of living under Soviet rule, which is also a little bit shocking and unexpected. So Russia has a very complicated history. I guess all countries do. If you were my age and you just were in a certain range when the movie Anastasia came out, you had a Romanov phase and you were very into Russia. And I am still very into Russia. And this is my category for sport. Thanks, Allison. This other book, it's not Allison's or recommended by Allison, but I did buy it when I was out with her at a bookstore, and it is called Meander, Spiral, Explode. This is for design, and it's got design right on the cover. Design and pattern in narrative. So, bada bing, bada boom. Italian. What this is a literary tool of interpretation, a way of reading books and talking about them in a less than traditional means, where in school we learned about rising action, climax, falling action, denouement, and there was a little cheeky statement that calls it a bit masculosexual, which is not a word I've ever heard, but yeah, fair enough. So what Jane Allison proposes to do in this book is give out an elucidation of literary strategies that also bring high spirits and wit to its original conclusions. It is a liberating manifesto that says, let's leave the outdated modes behind and, in thinking of new modes, bring feeling back to experimentation. It will appeal to serious readers and writers alike. I'm not a writer or a serious reader, I'm just regular, but I'm so amped to read this. I love experimental novels. I love Allie Smith. I love Anne Carson. I love so many people that are mentioned on the front flap. The back of this that is praised for the book says, doctors don't imitate Galen. Okay, why should writers follow Aristotle? I don't know that they do. I've never heard that before. When? Like his poetics? Who is following Aristotle? Jane Allison, in her fresh original book about narrative, is our new Aristotle. Goddamn. I'm ready for a new Aristotle. I still love our old regular Aristotle. So that's cool. And this guy wrote a book called The Unpunished Vice, A Life of Reading. I would read that. I don't know what you're talking about with Aristotle, but I would read that. So the final one, Voice, has nothing to do with Allison. Sorry, I'm only 3/4 obsessed with you. Bum ba da bum. The Hidden Life of Trees. what does this have to do with trees? Trees have no mouths, that's why the Lorax speaks for them. But the subtitle says what they feel, how they communicate. What I know about, I'm gonna butcher this, Peter Volobin is, he's a conservationist, he's very passionate about environmentalism, not always from the standpoint of what is right for people, which tends to be the route that I take as an environmentalist. I don't like the strife and hardship it brings to people in indigenous areas or really just any place that's not first world. We're very happy to screw over. He tends to look at it more as just saving and conserving nature for the sake of nature. And I mean, I guess that's fine, but I'm excited to read this. I don't know a lot about trees, but I've always been interested in learning more about botany. I never even did earth science in high school. In St. John's, like one of the very first things you have to do is draw a magnolia tree, and I thought it was so dumb. And as we did it, I started to kind of realize like, wow, I know nothing about how trees come to be and how they grow and how they work. So I am excited to learn more about them. I know that this is supposed to be very, very interesting. So this is my choice for voice. I'm super excited to read all of these. Like I said, I already started The Red Princess, so that's definitely going to be the one that I'm focusing on finishing first. After that, probably The Five, just because I probably saw it's a library book. I have to give it back to the library. And then Hidden Life of Trees. And all right. I'm excited. I'm also excited to see what everyone else is reading for Nonfiction November, even if they're just reading like a little article or their first nonfiction book or anything. If you want to read any of these along with me, that would be fun. Let me know. And I'll see you next time. Bye.